Hey everybody, welcome back to Conscientious Omnivore. My name is Powell. Good to see a few people on already. I'm happy, I guess it worked out well that I sent the notice out sooner. I need to start doing that more often. I'm really bad about like knowing ahead of time when I can actually go live, because I'm usually doing it at night and it depends on when the kids go to sleep and stuff, so I'll probably try to do it like this more often when I know that they'll be asleep by. So anyway, welcome. I'm going to do hopefully a relatively quick vegan news and views. I haven't done one of these in a long time, pretty much since like the beginning of, or maybe the middle of last year. I don't know, it's been many months. I can't remember when I did the last one. But I'd like to start doing them again because I think there's just so many things to talk about, and then I got pretty much overwhelmed. Like what I usually do for these articles is as I read them, I'm usually reading them on my phone, and then when I collect a certain number, usually like within a week or so, I try to do one of these. And I had so many like windows open in my browser from last year, kind of the end of last year, that it was just like some of the articles were just already kind of done and over. They weren't going to be interesting anymore. And then some of them were just like it was just like there were so many, I had to kind of start over again. So I got rid of like most of them and just kind of started a fresh batch. And I got some of the older ones from last year that I thought would be worthwhile. So yeah, hey Vohan, nice to see you. I will be giving you guys the scoop. So yeah, let's jump into it. Hope you guys find it interesting. Oh, I did get a spring haircut. Yes, I did. I don't know if it's spring yet though. It's really feeling like pretty much winter here. It's been like minus very cold degrees the last pretty much the whole week. So this morning was minus 10 Celsius. So what is that, Fahrenheit? I don't know. Maybe, I don't know, is that like around 20? Yeah, something like that. Low 20s or even below that, I think. Yeah, probably like maybe upper teens, low 20s. So it was pretty bad. But yeah, the dew was getting a bit shaggy, so it's time to time to get a cut. And it's my wife's work, so I'm glad it looks good. So anyway, let's jump in. I'm gonna share some stuff that's very pertinent and going on right now. You guys have probably seen, I mean everybody has seen all the terrible stuff going on in Australia. Pretty much, you know, like their whole country's burning and on fire, and or it seems like it, but obviously it's not the whole country, but it's a huge area of land. And hey Herbivore, welcome. Cool. Oh, you're okay, cool. PV, nice, cool. I didn't realize that you had a different name here. Anyway, welcome. So yeah, you know, this is a just infographic that I saw on Twitter, you know, like a few days ago that I thought was just really interesting. Harry Fraser, I follow him on Twitter, and he kind of posted a reply to this, but it was just an insane, you know, infographic when you think of what the area of land looks like superimposed on another country that maybe more people are familiar with or can kind of relate to. So if anybody's not in Australia, like, you know, it might be hard to imagine just how much of their country is on fire. So basically what they did was, this is what, you know, 5,900,000 hectares of England looks like. Imagine if all of this was on fire. That is what is burning in Australia right now. And yeah, I mean, it's just insane when you think about this. I know I have a lot of viewers from the UK, and when you see it like this, it really hits home more, you know, strongly. I didn't have time, but I kind of wanted to do the same thing, take the same land area, and then, you know, superimpose it on like the US. But yeah, like I didn't have time to do that, but I'm sure somebody has probably done that, or you can go do it yourself. It's a big area of land. I mean, you can see this is a really decent part of the UK and you know, England specifically, and yeah, it's insane. And as Harry points out, going vegan is the single biggest thing one of us can do to halt climate change. He links the article referencing the major studies that have come out to say this, and hopefully, you know, people are waking up and realizing this. But it's quite scary, the seeming yeah, seeming lack of understanding from those in charge and you know, running the country in Australia and elsewhere in other countries. I just saw posts yesterday, or maybe it was today, I don't even remember, that they just approved 2 new coal burning plants for electricity production in Australia. And I mean, it's like mind blowing. Like, you know, we know the climate change is real. We know that it's being caused by you know, human activity, by the greenhouse gases we're producing, and of course by animal agriculture, because that is the largest producer of greenhouse gases. And yet here we are going to produce more greenhouse gases by burning more coal. It's like, just hurts my head. It's awful. But the other thing that hurts my head is this plan, which I don't know if many people have seen, but they have put in place I think it's already happened, or it's set to happen today and tomorrow, I guess. Yes, Wednesday and Thursday, I think. So tomorrow is really when it's kicking off, I believe. They are going to be killing 10,000 camels in Australia to try to help with the water shortage situation. And it is just mind-blowing. Like, I didn't even know there were camels in Australia. I mean, I'm sure they're not native to Australia. And from what I've read, you know, they are there because of, you know, stupid human decisions, probably escaped from zoos or other kind of, you know, farms or ranches or whatever. And they have no natural predators in the wild, probably again because humans have killed off all the large predators. And yeah, they basically are overpopulating areas of Australia, and the State Department, as it says here, for Environment and Water, will send helicopters up, and they have put in place a plan to kill 10,000 camels in a 5-day killing spree, basically. So they want to kill the camels because they are drinking water. Go figure, animals need water to live. And there is a severe water shortage there, a huge drought. And people are complaining that the animals are getting into their homes and like drinking, you know, from the condensation from their air conditioners and stuff like that. And I mean, it's insane. Like, I think I tweeted about this. I can't remember what the wording I used, but it's basically like, it never ceases to amaze me the kind of crazy ideas people will come up with to try and solve the problems that they themselves have made. It's just like, it reminds me literally of The Simpsons when, you know, I forget what kind of animal they brought in, and then it started overpopulating. I think it was like, I don't even know if it was like pigeons, and they brought in snakes to control the pigeons, and then the snakes got to be too many, and then they were going to bring in some kind of, you know, monkey that ate the snakes, and then the monkeys would die when it got cold. And it was just like, this is the kind of absurdity that is real life. Like, the craziness that happens in a cartoon is actually starting to happen in real life. Like, we need to go kill camels because they drink too much water. Like, I don't know, just hurts my head. I mean, it's crazy. Jen says, and at least one from Australia. Yeah, that's right. I do have viewers kind of from all over, and I'm sure some people are watching this from Australia, other people as well. And I mean, my heart goes out to you, and I think so many people from the world as well. I know there's a lot of places you can donate if anybody's in the position to be able to donate. There's a lot of good places to do so. Obviously, the Red Cross. There's animal sanctuary places. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of places you can donate. I think this is definitely, you know, something that deserves attention. And, you know, think what you will, but probably more so than you know, an old church going up in flames. I think this is a lot more important, just like the Amazon is. And you know, just in the past few months, there was a lot of news about that as well. You know, this is a huge impact, and the fire itself is actually making the climate worse as well, because I think I read something like it's going to produce the amount of CO2 that like an additional 5-point-something billion people on Earth would have done. So, I mean, it's a lot of CO2 that's getting produced by the fire. It's really crazy. Oh, Jen says they were introduced because Australia is so dry and they do better than horses. So I guess it was intentional then. That's terrible. And now, yeah, killing camels from helicopters and leaving them to rot. Australia is the worst at this. Foxes, rabbits, cane toads. Yeah, I think yeah, rabbits are also another thing where they were introduced by you know, basically Westerners, and then they've, you know, exploded in population and causing all sorts of havoc and stuff like that. And yep, that's right. So, I mean, crazy. Spread of disease, that's right. Crazy. And then again, this kind of thinking is not unique to Australia. I'm including this. This was a slightly older article that I wanted to talk about last year, but I just never got around to it, as I said. This is a U.S. experiment to kill owls. Basically, this is happening in the Northwest, in areas of Oregon, and I think other parts in the Northwest as well. There are some old-growth forests where they have a problem with a particular owl. I don't even remember which kind it was. But basically, there's some like really, really endangered owl that's native to that area. And then there's this other type of owl that has encroached on that owl's space and is outperforming the native owl. So they're going to go out and kill like thousands of these beautiful owls to try to save the other type of species, which is endangered because people have destroyed so much of its habitat that it no longer has enough place to live, and they're confined to this one little area. And these other owls are, you know, probably displaced from some other place, but they're not endangered, so it's okay to kill like thousands and thousands of them. So they have, you know, people who are supposed to be conservationists going out, and these, you know, biologists, conservationists are shooting these owls. And it's just like, again, I literally can't say it enough. It's so absurd. It's beyond ridiculous. Like, it's literally the craziness of like a cartoon happening in real life. So yeah, here it is. After the owl was listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act in 1990, federal officials halted logging on millions of acres of old-growth forests on federal lands to protect the bird's habitat, but the bird's population continued to decline. I mean, again, we know things like pesticides, herbicides, all these other things can impact it as well. Who knows what other kind of, you know, environmental impacts, maybe changes to the climate itself, their food source may have changed. I mean, there's so many things that impact on animals, and we are not smart enough to actually know all these things. And a lot of times people try to intervene and do these things without even understanding the full impact and the ramifications of what they're doing. So yeah, they're basically saying that this barred owl, that's the one they're going to be killing, is the spotted owl's worst enemy. They reproduce more often, have more babies per year, and eat the same prey like squirrels and wood rats, and they now outnumber spotted owls in many areas of the native bird's historic range. So in a last-ditch effort to see whether they can save spotted owls, federal officials are resorting to killing hundreds of federally protected barred owls, because they're protected, but they're not endangered. So yeah, they're just, you know, going to use tax money, you know, taxpayer money to go and have wildlife service, you know, people going out and shooting all these owls. And it's absolutely insane. Like, I don't think this is ethical in any way, shape, or form. And you know, they even have interviews with some of the people working in the you know, in the rangers or whatever these people are, these conservation people, and they're saying like, yeah, it's just a terrible feeling that they're, you know, supposed to be protecting wildlife and they're out there shooting it. It's just, you know, killing you to save you, or killing one thing to save another thing. It's just, it makes no sense. I mean, people just need to stop doing this kind of arrogant, you know, stuff. It just infuriates me. So, yeah. What do I think of CRISPR and gene drives? I don't know what that is, Jen. What is a CRISPR? CRISPR and gene drives. I don't know what that is. The badger cull in the UK is an outrage intention to get rid of bovine TB, and has been shown to be ineffective and more costly than inoculation outside of the cruelty. I've actually done videos where I talked about that specifically, and I showed why it's completely ineffective. I had a map and everything in one of the stories that I covered in a previous live stream. You should check that one out if you haven't seen it. There was a great article. I can't remember where it was, but it's in the live stream. I always put the links in at the comments at the end. They had a map showing the movement of cattle in the UK, and basically just from all the data that's available, you can see why any type of badger cull would be completely ineffective at reducing the risk of TB transmission. between the between the herds of cattle. There's so many miles covered between farm to slaughterhouse and slaughterhouse to to store or processing that it would be pretty much impossible. It has nothing to do with the badgers. It's just a simple scapegoating and trying to give people this way of feeling like they're doing something. It's like, we got to do something, and it's like people just feel somehow like if you're doing something, it's better than doing nothing. And I think that's kind of this same thing with the owls, same thing with the with the camels. I mean, these people are insane. Like they're not making things any better. It's crazy. Humane Hancock's ideas for reducing carnivore numbers. I haven't heard that yet. I would not be in support of that at all. I don't know if that's what he's advocating for. I'd be really surprised, and I would certainly not agree with that. I think the reason why we have so many problems with things like deer overpopulating. It's one of the classic examples used by people who support hunting, that you need to cull them because they will just overpopulate and eat all their food source, like their trees and leaves and whatever, and then they will actually be starving to death and really unhealthy and what have you. And the thing that most people don't realize is that hunting is a huge business. So things like the the wildlife game and whatever the heck it's called in whatever country, but in the U.S. I know the fishing and gaming departments make huge money by selling licenses to people for hunting and fishing. And the reason why we have so many deer is because they intentionally clear areas of forest and make the kind of habitat that is good for producing a high number of, say, like deer and elk and things like that. And naturally, we've killed off all the large predators that used to be in North America, like the wolves and like coyotes and what have you, because they are seen as a threat to animal agriculture, because people don't want them taking away their sheep and chickens and cows and what have you. And then you can make a lot of money on the other side by selling licenses to go and hunt the deer. So the reason why we have so many deer is because we've killed off all the wolves, and because they do land management, the Bureau of Land Management and all these other kinds of things. They're all in cahoots with each other. It's like you create the kind of environment that produces a lot of these herbivores, and then you have to like go and cull them because there's so many of them that they would literally eat all the stuff that's available for them, and then they would be starving. And then it's like, oh, you're being cruel because you're not killing them. It's this complete like idiotic like circular logic. And I really am not in favor of any kind of intervention. I think like anything is less cruel than what the idiotic things that people think up for themselves. So in my mind, it's like, as cruel as it might sound to say like, okay, well maybe some of these animals will starve to death, or yeah, maybe some of them are going to get eaten by a wolf. Like I still think that's less cruel than getting shot by a stupid human with a shotgun, and then who knows like what kind of death that animal is going to suffer when they limp along or go, suffering for who knows how long before they succumb to their, bleed out or whatever. It's like, it's not our place to try to figure out what way of these things is the better way for them to die. I think we should just leave them alone, give them the dignity to fend for themselves and do what they need to do, and we shouldn't be involved in that. And I absolutely do not support like culling predators either. I don't think that's right. Hey Juice, welcome back. Hey man, it's me again to try to peel the apple, and surprisingly I had no bloating or gas and I didn't have to fart. It feels like it's completely digested. Maybe I'll incorporate more apples now. Nice, cool. Glad to hear it, man, and I'm glad you're back. And I hope you read through some of the stuff that I was covering as well. It's good to see you. Generally, it's a section of DNA that can be replaced with different DNA. I don't really fully understand it, but there are scientists working on replacing DNA in, for example, mosquitoes so they can't reproduce. Yeah, I don't like that kind of stuff. I don't like playing God and creating mutant animals and changing things and what have you. I don't want to see it done. I mean, in the antinatalist kind of videos I've done or talked about antinatalism, that question does come up of like, well, what do you do to reduce the suffering in the wild and what have you. I'm kind of willing to have those kind of theoretical discussions and and what have you, and just ethical questions of like, if we could be in a position to alleviate kind of like, you know, animal suffering in the wild as well, like you know, would we do it, and would it be, you know, reasonable to do it, and whatever. Like I would be willing to kind of entertain those discussions, but I think like the first step is obviously to get the world to be a more vegan place, or to get it to be a largely vegan place, I think, before we talk about any kind of thing like that. You know, I think like you know, even just like sterilizing, even if we're not talking about a full, you know, anesthetizing and killing of animals in the wild, I think is immoral. I think it's not right for us to decide, you know, which animals get to live and which animals get to die. And I don't even think it's right for us to decide which animals get to reproduce and not. And that's my main problem with animal agriculture, because what we're doing is we're breeding them. And, you know, we wouldn't have so many if we didn't do it in the first place. And again, deer and other, you know, herbivores in the wild like that, same kind of problem. They're there because of the human intervention to begin with. So that's the way I look at it, and I wouldn't want to mess with that. Humane Hancock has this idea that humans should care about suffering of wild animals and therefore reduce the number of carnivores. Well, yeah, I mean, I agree that we should care about the suffering of wild animals, but what I see is the cause of the suffering of wild animals is our stupid policies and things that we do. I don't think, you know, I don't think a deer thinks of a wolf as some kind of, you know, like, I don't think they suffer in just living in the woods and what have you. Like, even if they do fear wolves, even if they do run away from wolves, I mean, they do have their own natural, you know, innate sense of way to protect themselves. That's why they have herds. That's why they stay together. That's why they protect their young in the ways they do, the way they do, you know, kind of keep them close, the way they corral. There's a lot of protective, you know, mechanisms in place there. The reason why they look the same, the reason why they herd, is because it's harder for wolves to pick them out. They can stay fresh if they lead, you know, people off like track. There was a really interesting section of the book Born to Run, where they tell the story about a tribe in Africa that still uses running to basically pick out an animal from the herd, and then they basically run it to death. And it's a real talent, so to speak, to be able to actually keep tracking the same animal. In the book, I remember McDougall talks a lot about how difficult this is, because he explains somebody else's story who tried doing this based on the anecdotal information available from these like tribes people. They thought they could just go and like run a deer to death in the woods and hunt it and be able to catch it and kill it. And what they didn't realize is that you know, what will happen is you'll start chasing one deer, it'll break away from the group, you'll chase it, and then after a while, other deer will kind of come into play and take the place of the running deer. They're actually quite smart. They try to protect each other. So the one that's been running will get back into the herd. You'll start running a fresh deer, and unless you're really keen and really aware and like been trained in this, like, you wouldn't even notice. You would think you would be chasing the same deer, and just you would be chasing it for a long time, because what would happen is it would keep being swapped out by other deer and you wouldn't notice. So you would keep chasing a fresh deer and you would get more and more tired. You really have to know how to be able to basically, you know, somehow kind of designate the one that you're chasing and really be chasing that one until it actually gets tired. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of instinctual kind of behavior that animals have to protect themselves. It's not just like in, you know, people have this like romanticized notion, I think, because of like all the nature films and all these kinds of things that we see. You think it's just like some wolf comes along and just is easily able to go and kill some deer, and, you know, that they all just somehow suffer this horrific death. And it's like, that really couldn't be further from the truth. It's not like it's easy for the wolf to do it, and it's not like it happens to all the deer. Yeah, so I really think like it's a really arrogant kind of position to take, and I'm certainly not in support of it. Sorry, that was a long tangent. Cool, you agree? Hashtag carnivorous animals lives matter. Yes, I do think so too. I think all animal life matters, and we should do our best to stay out of it and just butt out and, you know, stick to our own thing. That's what I think, and our thing should be, you know, focused on limiting our impact to anything else on the earth. That's my view. Anyway, moving on. This was an older one that I found from, yeah, you can see August of last year, but I really did want to share this. especially for people in the UK. I guess it's now becoming very popular for people to do wild swimming clubs. People swim in lakes and streams and what have you. And there was a kind of a bombshell revelation. They did a bunch of pollution measurements in various freshwater throughout the UK, and what they found was that no river in England is safe to swim in. I mean, that is just, I saw this and I was just shocked. I was floored. It's just terrible. I mean, it's like, it reminds me of that famous quote. I forget, it's by some Native American, and I can't remember the exact quote, and I apologize. But it's something along the lines of like, until the last fish is caught from the last river and everything has been poisoned and you can't drink and, the land is completely barren or whatever, that's when we'll realize like that we've screwed up and you can't eat money. And here it is, no river in England is safe. So out of all of the waterways that they tested, none of them are safe to swim in. So it's just shocking. Yeah, 86% of rivers fall short of the EU's pollution standards, and none of them are tested regularly enough to be officially deemed safe for swimmers. Half of all rivers overseen by the Environment Agency last year reportedly contained at least one hazardous pollutant, including pesticides and toxic metals. Lack of prosecutions. Again, regional waterways companies which manage Britain's sewage system have long been blamed for the contamination, but the number of prosecutions by the Environmental Agency has dropped dramatically in recent years, with only 3 cases brought against the water giants last year compared to 30 in 2014. I maintain, and I don't know the situation in the UK, but I would bet my bottom dollar that this is the exact situation we've seen in the US, which I've talked about in previous live streams. In that these big companies that are doing the worst of the pollution, they're in bed with these environmental agency groups. They are literally getting tiny slaps on the wrist, minimal fines. Sometimes they don't even pay fines at all, and they just promise to do better later. And they're just allowed to keep on doing it because the people who pay these large either like election fees for judges and regulators and all these kinds of people that are like nominated or elected. They have these election campaigns. Sometimes there's things through that, but in either case, I'm sure there's some shady money going on here. Why would you think that they would only bring 1/10 of the cases that they did from just a few short years ago, when the pollution is actually getting worse? Like, they should be doing more cases, not less. So yeah, it's crazy. Here again, the agency reportedly even allows the companies to suggest their own penalties, with many of them usually getting away with a contribution to charity. So it's like, yeah, pollute the water, poison everything. Oh, you got caught. Well, how would you like to make this right? How about we give away some money to charity? And then of course they get probably a tax write-off to do that too. So it's like you get to pollute for free, you get a tax write-off at the end of it, and nobody's the wiser. Like, great. So yeah, basically, if anybody's swimming in England, like, be careful, I guess is all I can say. It's just shocking. I was actually flabbergasted by this. I just couldn't believe this. This is just shocking. I don't want to be harping on too many negative stuff, so I included some positive things here. And no, this is not a big joint. It is sage that is being burned. So this is a positive study that I came across from one of the people that I follow on Twitter. Her name is Rose, and I can't remember her actual thing right now, what her username is. It's somebody help me out. But anyway, PV, can you help me out there? Shoot, what is Rose's thing? Anyway, she's a nutritionist, and she shared this, and I got this link from her. It's basically a study that was done showing that burning sage in an indoor room. I guess this is a long-standing Native American ritual. It's called smudging, and it clears the bad air in the room of like tons and tons of germs and bacteria that can be harmful to humans. So basically, it says they did a recent study, and it showed during the burning the herb in a room for an hour reduced the number of airborne bacteria by a whopping 94%. The room remained almost entirely disinfected for over 24 hours, and 7 strains of disease-causing bacteria previously present in the room still could not be detected 30 days later. So this is really awesome. Oh, cool! Thanks so much for putting that in there, PV. Vegan Nutrition One. Follow Rose on Twitter if anybody is not following her yet. Hey Leon, welcome back. Yeah, this is like really awesome, and it says, yeah, we've demonstrated that using medicinal smoke, it is possible to completely eliminate diverse plant and human pathogenic bacteria of the air within confined space. Wrote the study's author from the National Botanical Research Institute in India. And sage is also used in herbal medicine internally as a powerful antiseptic and anti-inflammatory. As you guys know, if you've been following my gardening videos, yeah, sorry you came in late, Leon, but don't worry, you can always watch the replay. And we actually haven't covered that many stories. We've just been kind of derailed on some other sidetrack discussions, which are also important, of course, and fun, but not too many articles yet. So if you guys follow my gardening videos, you'll see that I am growing sage as well in the garden. I actually really enjoy sage just for like as an herb. I like putting it into foods. For me, it's kind of like just like basil. It goes pretty much well in anything, I think. Like I actually combine it with basil sometimes. I think it's just a wonderful herb. I like eating it fresh, just chopping it into little pieces. You can throw it in salads or savory foods or whatever. And I also use it for making tea. It's actually really tasty. I combine it with ginger. And if you just like brew up like just boiling water, throw in a couple of slices of ginger, fresh ginger, throw in some sage. You can throw other stuff in there. It's wonderful. It just makes a really nice tea. Tastes great, and apparently is very good and beneficial for a whole bunch of stuff. So anti-inflammatory, etc., etc. And if you just dry it, you can burn it, and the smoke helps clear out the pathogens in the air. So try this out if you guys can get your hands on some dried sage. And basically winter time is here. Everybody's getting sick. I was sick. I didn't burn sage yet. I probably will though, and see if that helps at all. And just check it out. Hey Frank, welcome. Keto ad prior to the video. Oh man, I don't even know. Like I swear the algorithms are done like that on purpose. There are so many times where I go to watch a vegan YouTube channel or a video or whatever, or something to do with veganism, and I get ads for like chicken and other kind of like meat products or keto things. My Facebook, like the only thing I use Facebook for, my personal Facebook, is just posting my own like videos and like vegan things and studies and stuff like that. And like half of the things I see in Facebook, they're all like keto, paleo, meat, all this kind of stuff. The other half is like vegan. And I just wonder, like, how does this algorithm work? Like, they clearly know that the only thing I post is like vegan stuff, and they do put in a bunch of vegan stuff, but then at the same time they probably put in an equal number of like all this anti-vegan stuff. And I think it's intentional. I maintain that. Can you grow hot sauce in the garden? I grew so many hot peppers this year, Frank. It's been awesome. I didn't do a video about it specifically, but I have a whole bowl full of dried chili peppers right now, and I probably will hopefully do a video about it. But my intention is to throw them in a grinder and just make like either like chili flakes, and then I can use that over food, or I may actually grind it like in the coffee grinder to just get a powder. My mom did that, and when we were there for the holidays, it was awesome. Like she made a vegan, I don't know, however many bean chili for us, and it was awesome. Just sprinkling that on the top came out really good. Hi Shatura, welcome. Herbivore. The ad for the automated milking system comes up often. Yeah, I've seen that one too. It's terrible. You turned off targeted ads a while ago. Yeah, you can, and I mean, you can use ad blockers. They remove a lot of stuff. They don't remove everything, I think, but I think some pages are now getting hip to that too. So if you have an ad blocker enabled, it actually senses that, and then it puts up a pop-up and says like you can't view the page until you disable your ad blocker. So it's kind of like, I don't know, there's no real easy way to get around this stuff, and obviously as a content creator, I mean, like that's how YouTube and other services like this pay the content creators is through the ad revenue. So it's kind of like, I want to say to people, like, use whatever you want, I don't really care, but yeah, it's kind of like, obviously, like, if everybody used an ad blocker, the whole system kind of wouldn't work the way it does. So I don't know, it's kind of funny though that that they try to get people who are watching vegan content to go out and eat meat or whatever. It's a weird idea. I think the advertisers get to choose the tags they want to target. They want to stop the vegan movement, so it comes up on videos about veganism. I think it's intentional too, Leon. I absolutely agree. I have to believe that, just because I say, like, the volume of the stuff I see on things that I don't have blocked it's just crazy. Like, there's no way it's not targeted. I'm sure it is. And that is a beautiful segue into the next story. I actually really like reading the Farmers Weekly occasionally. I see these kinds of crazy articles, and I like sharing these. So if anybody has been watching these news live streams that I do, you'll know that I include one of these, like, in almost every one of them. They're seemingly just always have, like, some kind of funny thing to talk about. So this one here, yeah, you can see the title: Animal rights activists pose rising threat to farmers. And this is just this publication is actually geared towards farmers, and they often have these kinds of writings telling farmers how to engage with activists, how to talk to vegans, how to talk to media, and all this kind of stuff, and try to protect their business. They're basically, scripting or guiding people in the animal agriculture industry as to how and what they should say when they're talking to vegans and activists. And so here it is. A senior police officer has warned that animal rights activists pose an increasing threat to farmers and are sharing information about tactics against the livestock sector with other protest groups. Superintendent Rory Freeman of Thames Valley Police issued the warning during a presentation to farmers attending a rural crime event hosted by the NFU this week at whatever golf club. There has been a significant national rise in protest activity that is not just animal rights, that is all protest activity. Protesters, including animal rights activists and environmental campaigners, were swapping information between groups. This is kind of on the back of a lot of the rebellion and extinction protests that were happening kind of in the fall time. And yeah, I think the industry, I think the people in power, they are clearly feeling threatened by these grassroots movements that are now gaining in popularity, gaining people, and gaining numbers. And the fact that these groups are now starting to see the connection and see kind of like all the ways that animal agriculture negatively impacts humans, the earth, as far as like the environmental damage, the animals, obviously, in an ethical kind of sense, and just all of these things are all interconnected in so many ways, and they're afraid. Yeah, they want to maintain their own kind of status quo and keep people doing the same kinds of things. So they literally have a policeman attending a farmers event and giving a presentation about security and protests and what have you. And don't think for a minute that they don't have their eye on protesters. I mean, it's not for nothing that protesters on fox hunting trips and stuff like that will have video proof of people breaking the law, hunting foxes illegally, killing them, doing sabotage, smashing cars, threatening people, hitting people, assaulting people, and oftentimes even with video evidence, these people get away with it. And the reason they get away with it is because they're really upper class people, or sometimes they're politicians themselves. And they protect each other. And it's just crazy. The more left-leaning news channels feel the same about how YouTube pushes right-wing and big channels. Well, I've seen articles about that, and I think some of it actually kind of, it goes both ways. I think what happens is sensationalism is pushed. The algorithms favor things that are extreme. So on both ends of the spectrum. I think being a centrist, being reasonable, doesn't get you views. If you think about just the title of videos and things like that, like what gets views? Clickbait titles get views. And, at some point I'll probably start making more clickbaity titles, as I want the channel to grow as well. And I'll try to make the clickbait title actually be still somewhat, real and true, because I don't like it when you go to a video and it really has nothing to do with the title. But yeah, you really need to kind of you have to schnazz everything up. You got to make it sexy. You have to make it like kind of bigger than it is. You have to make it, you can't just make a list of like, 5 great tips for making, whatever, I don't know, tofu curry or something. You have to make like the 5 greatest tips you ever heard for, it's like, you can't just do stuff as just like a nice friendly, kind of whatever. Like nobody watches that. It's really kind of frustrating. And I think what happens is these algorithms pick up things that get a lot of views, get a lot of like shock value, like, why are people like Tim Sheaf popular? Like why does raw alignment get to be in the news, in mainstream media after doing the carnivore challenge? It's like, it's almost not even enough that she goes from vegan to ex-vegan. That's not shocking enough. But going from, ex-vegan to carnivore, like where you don't eat anything that's not a dead animal, that's shocking. And then that's what, it's like crazy. Unfortunately, there are a lot of new vegans that are still easily influenced because their morals aren't solid yet. Yeah, that's also true. I would agree with that, Leon. Herbivore for when conscientious omnivore is no longer vegan. Oh man, I think I would just die of shame if I ever stopped being a vegan. I can't even imagine. I just don't even understand how these people function and how they can be so fake. I don't even know. It's just crazy. But playing on that joke, I could say, I never said I was vegan. I always said I was a conscientious omnivore. Man, people just, I don't know. They seriously need help. YouTube literally admitted that authoritative news sources will get pushed, the excuses being repressing fake news, even though CNN and Fox News are the definition of fake news. I would agree with that. Mainstream news is not news. Mainstream media is propaganda for people in charge. That's literally what it is. So, yeah, anyway. Again, I'm just raising this here that, people who are doing activism, you should be kind of careful and take precautions when you can. I really want to stress that. I think like we need to look out for each other, and I don't think it's paranoia to think that people in power are viewing you as a threat, me as a threat, anybody who speaks up about the truth and wants change in the system as a threat, because it is a threat. It's a threat to their way of life and the way that business is being run. And here, farmers who are the victim of any unwanted activity, including anonymous phone calls, threatening emails, or letters from animal rights protesters, should inform police, said Superintendent Rory Freeman. It's kind of like, well, yeah, if you're getting threatened, you should inform the police, absolutely. But again, they're making this seem as if like, oh, these poor farmers and they're the victims, and all this kind of stuff. It's just it's so the opposite of truth. It's like they're literally in opposite land. Our neighborhood teams or more specialist officers will talk to you if you're in the least bit concerned and give you different scales of advice depending on what the threats are. All incidents should be reported, no matter how trivial they seem. Farmers witnessing a crime should call 999, otherwise they should call 101, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, in every case I've seen so far when farmers have made a claim that they've been threatened, that has turned out to be false. In every single case, I have yet to see a legitimate case of somebody actually being threatened. It's just crazy. Anyway. Yeah, Herbivore says, yep, Leon, it's actually in their rules. I'm sure it is. That's how they get more views. This is a crazy news story that I want to share with you guys. This one I got from the end of last year as well. The climate is changing so much now that there is so much ice melt in Greenland that there is a Cold War camp that was set up by the U.S. Back in the in the Cold War era, so post World War II, where they had a nuclear facility buried in the ice, where they had thought at the time they were building it that it would forever be encased in ice. And then now there is a huge problem there. There's all this radioactive waste that was buried in the ice. They were running a nuclear facility there. And basically, it was like a top secret project, and you know, nobody knew about it and all this kind of stuff. But then at some point they always claimed it was like a research thing. It's a really interesting video. I definitely encourage everybody to watch this. But as you can see from the thumbnail here, the screenshot, you know, there are literally just like barrels and barrels of like toxic crude oil containers, like all this other stuff that's just sitting there, and it's being exposed by the retreating snow and glacier melt and ice melt and all this kind of stuff. And there is a somewhat of a push to try to get the U.S. to pay reparations or some kind of like cleanup or do something about it. And right now, nobody's done anything about it. And you know, who knows how many more of these kinds of things are going to be getting exposed as ice keeps melting and we keep going into worse and worse warming. And it's just kind of a crazy thing. But I thought this was worth a watch, so check it out if you get a chance. Herbivore farmers are always throwing out this death threat claims. Dairy farmers had to admit as much. Yep, and there were cases where, you know, I think there was a lady. It was like a young girl or lady. I don't know. She was probably like 20 or something, where she was saying that she got death threats, and then it turned out that it was actually she never received any kind of threats. She had kind of like heard about some threats, and yeah, I mean, but of course the, you know, the damage is done because the mainstream media jumps all over it. They run all the headlines of like, you know, this girl got all these death threats, and it turns out to not be true. And maybe people print redactions or whatever, but like, you know, the headline is what gets people's attention, and then running an apology, you know, 2-3 weeks later in small, you know, print and, you know, page 17, like nobody cares about that. FYI, you can use Tamper Monkey to disable ad block detectors. Oh, cool! I haven't didn't know that. If you know JavaScript, okay. I don't know JavaScript well enough. I used to kind of know some stuff about JavaScript a long time ago in a previous life, but no, I'll have to look into that. That's kind of cool. Next, Great Barrier Reef Outlook very poor, Australia says. Kind of going back to the opening article, let's talk about Australia and just climate in general. This is the Great Barrier Reef, which we know from, you know, previous years already has suffered so much damage from the warming of the ocean, from the acidification of the ocean, the larger CO2 content in the water, and yeah, it's just insane. And basically, this is the outlook has been officially downgraded from poor to very poor due to climate change. This is again coming from the end of last year, fall time of last year, August 30th. Rising sea temperatures, thanks to human-driven global warming, remain the biggest threat to the reef, a 5-year Australian government report says. Actions to save it have never been more critical, the report reads, and yeah, stretching over 1,400 miles, 2,300 kilometers. The reef was designated World Heritage Site in 1981, and in recent years the reef has been significantly damaged by warmer seas, which have killed off coral and affected its long-term health. I've done previous streams where I talked about efforts to try to replant coral and all this kind of stuff. There's, I think it's called whitewash, which is when huge swaths of the coral are killed, and they're trying to replant it and regrow it. But I mean, all these things take like, you know, decades and years and many years, and time is kind of running out. And yeah, it's just a huge thing. I actually have a number of interesting things talking about the ocean that I'm going to try to collect into one specific video, so look for that later. But I mean, it's dire straits right now. Like we're really kind of on the precipice of a huge problem in the ocean. I mean, it's already a huge problem, but like we ain't seen nothing yet. It's really scary, the stuff that is coming out about the health of the oceans and you know, reefs and coral and wildlife and fish. I mean, it's crazy. So, I mean, here there's a quote from the report. Since then, the region has further deteriorated, and in 2019, Australia is caring for a changed and less resilient reef. Rising sea temperatures caused mass bleaching events in 2016 and 2017 that wiped out coral and destroyed habitats for other sea life. While some habitats remained in good state, the condition of the site as a whole is worsening. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. So you can see here, number of new coral, you know, growth plummeted by 89% on the reef, thanks to recent bleaching events, which affected a 1,500 kilometer stretch. You can remember that the total length was what, 2,300 or what was it? 2,300 kilometers. So 1,500 kilometers of that was affected. I mean, that's just insane. And they're really calling into question whether we can save it at all or not. So, yeah, it's basically here, we can turn this around, but only if the Prime Minister cares enough to lead a government that wants to save it, and saving it means being a leader here and internationally to bring greenhouse gas emissions down. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, they're just approving new coal burning plants. So I don't think they're moving in the right direction. Things are looking pretty bad. So I just think we really need to start putting pressure on politicians and doing what we can individually. And I think, people, as I said in the beginning, the biggest thing we can do as individuals for sure is to adopt a vegan lifestyle and stop supporting animal agriculture. That is something that everyone has the power to do. I realize not everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, but most people, if you're watching this, you probably have the ability to do it, and I encourage everybody to try. Juturu says, I heard, I missed the message, you retracted it, couldn't read it. Okay, report, Class 1 recalls of meat and poultry skyrocketed by 83%. This actually is something I just wanted to share because this is pretty much like 1 year old. This came out in January of last year. Basically, it's just a really damning, set of statistics and information. And I highly doubt that it's gotten any better over the past year. As I did these live streams, pretty much, if you recall, in almost just about every one of them, I think I always include a recall of the week or whatever when I'm doing these. There are so many meat recalls. There are so many, something's poisoned, something's infected with some kind of, bacteria or disease or manure or E. coli or something where, it's just crazy stuff. And this is just kind of a collection of that from the previous year. So this came out in January of last year. Factory farming is filthier than ever, according to a new report from the Public Interest Research Group based on USDA and FDA data. So again, this is US-based stuff. Recalls of meat and poultry skyrocketed from 2013 to 2018. Beef recalls rose by 55%, pork recalls rose by 67%, and poultry recalls went up the most at 70%. This kind of mirrors, I think, some of the stuff I covered in the UK in one of the previous streams as well. They had really bad samples and stuff detected at all the large suppliers like Tesco and Aldi and all the big stores. Yeah, Leon, you're absolutely right. Australia. We have lots of empty land, lots of sun. Let's build coal plants. Yeah, exactly. It's a big handout to mining companies, I'm sure, just like Jen said at the beginning. Perhaps even more troubling, the new report finds that Class 1 recalls of meat and poultry increased by 83%. Since they involve a health hazard situation in which there is a reasonable probability that eating the food will cause health problems or death, Class 1 recalls are the most serious, and there was an 83% increase in those. So, just insane. And it says the danger associated with Class 1 recalls combined with their prevalence should sound alarms that even with the U.S. Food Inspection and Verification Systems, factory farms are frightfully hazardous. And it's nothing new. They get into the stuff that has been being reported for many years. They talk about how many cases were reported and all this kind of stuff. Here it is. Also in 2013, the CDC reported that about 80% of antibiotics in the U.S. were given to animals raised for food, largely to prevent rampant spread of disease and infection at factory farms where animals are packed tightly together and made to live in their own filth. This is, again, going to start impacting humans in a big way. And it's already kind of starting to do it. And we've seen, avian flu, and we've seen a few other scares that thankfully didn't turn out to be quite as catastrophic as people feared. I mean, many people did die, but it didn't turn out to be this, huge, killing spree for humans. But, that can easily happen. And this is the thing that everyone thinks like, I'm not going to take antibiotics because it's bad for my gut biome and whatever. And, people don't realize but it can also save your life from some kind of actual infection. Even somebody as just misguided and unintelligent as Sverge, even he took the antibiotics when it was going to be the choice was your arm is infected, we're going to cut it off, or you take the antibiotics and save your arm. Even he took the antibiotics. But people don't realize that these bacteria are getting more and more resistant to all the types of antibiotics that we have. And the reason being is that, again, 80% of them are fed to animals. At some point, that is going to come back and bite us. And people just don't understand how bad this can be. You can be a vegan and be affected by this. We can all die from some horrific, infection that starts from the animal agriculture industry because it develops some kind of antibiotic resistant strain of a bacteria, and then if it morphs and goes into humans and it's going to also be still resistant to any kind of antibiotic, we're screwed. It's like it can easily happen. Here it says the CDC reports that according to the CDC, at least 2 million infections from antibiotic-resistant bacteria occur every year, and 22% of these are linked to foodborne pathogens. So, roughly a quarter of the 2 million. That's 500,000 infections are linked to foodborne pathogens. To make matters worse, a total of 40 different diseases are transmissible from farmed animals' waste to humans. I'm going to do a separate video about this as well, but here in Hungary, I do a lot of trail running, lately I haven't been running much, but I want to get back into it. And when I was in the summertime, there is a huge scare with is it African swine fever or Asian swine fever? I don't even know. There's so many of these things now. I think it's African swine fever. It's spreading all through Europe. I think it started in Asia and Africa, and now it's all over the place. And I think I read that it's also feared that it's going to spread to the U.S. and it's killing all these pigs and all this kind of stuff. There's no cure for it right now. They have no way to deal with it except massive culls. They're killing pigs all over. I'm going to do a separate video about this. But, again, I see signs for this stuff out here in Hungary, in the woods, warning people about wild boars that I guess it's already happened, that it spreads and contaminates them, and then those can go and spread and contaminate farmed pigs as well. So there's already fear that it's kind of just spreading, and it's I could just be vegan me and running out in the woods and get attacked by some boar or something, and who knows what kind of diseases I might get or transmit to other things. It's really scary stuff, and this is a real fear. And yeah. As the end of this little article says, you can protect your health and take a stand against factory farm corruption by refusing to buy meat, dairy, and eggs. And then, check out Choose Veg, blah, blah, blah. So definitely look into this stuff and share this information. It's all over the place. So Frank says, I straight up fought a squirrel. My choice of weapon was water. He did not back down. He came at me. It was insane 30-minute battle. Do you think it was, diseased? Maybe it was rabid or something? I don't know. I've never heard of a squirrel kind of coming at a person, but who knows if it's ill or injured or something. Anyway, some more positive things, and then I'm going to have to end the stream pretty soon. So if anybody has any questions, just type away. But here's a bit of good news that I wanted to share. This one came out from the middle of last year, so this was from summer of last year. This tiny electric plane, I think it's a 2-seater if I remember right. It might be a 1-person or a 2-person. I can't remember. What is this? Yeah, carried 2 passengers. It's a really light aircraft. It's 300 kilograms in total, including a 100 kilogram 21 watt per hour battery, and it can fly the 2 people for 160 kilometers and on 1 hour of charge, which costs, I think it said $5 or something like that. Yeah. So basically this plane is so small and so light, it's electric, it's fully electric. It can fly 2 people for 160 kilometers for $5 on 1 charge, which takes an hour to charge. This is the kind of stuff that I think will revolutionize travel, and this is the kind of thing that actually gives me, hope that, we can actually do things with technology that, really reduce our impact on the environment. And right now, commercial flight is a real big problem. And as I've said in a video before, we oftentimes, I think, kind of demonize flying. But if you look at kind of the efficiency of it, it's actually really pretty efficient considering the number of people that are flying in the one airplane. You have to realize airlines are cramming in a lot of people on one flight. So yes, it does use a lot of gas, but compared to like driving that many people, it's actually far more efficient. So, but something like this would absolutely be even more advantageous. And I think we're going to just start seeing more and more stuff like this. And now Trump is easing the way for faster meat processing lines and more self-regulation. Yes, that is absolutely true, Herbivore. One thing I've said before, and it was actually shocking to me to see it. Not that it should have been, because my hatred of both political parties is pretty much been there for a long time, and I don't trust either of them farther than I could throw them. But the Trump deregulation or whatever rollback of regulation concerning line speed is actually not new. It continues on the back of deregulation and easing of rules started in the Obama administration. So they had already eased those regulations for, I think it was poultry, so chickens and turkeys and what have you. And the Trump easing for the meat processing of pork and cows and letting them self-regulate, that is actually just a continuation of those policies. So if anybody's out there and you think like Trump is any worse or better than Obama, like I really seriously consider you to look into some of the really shady, terrible stuff that was going on then too, but just not getting as much press. We really need a complete shift of all the politicians. I think they all need to be booted out. Leon says, I think creating a proper system for lots of personal aircrafts would be a nightmare though. Oh yeah, I'm not suggesting people should be, getting these and driving these around, or flying these around instead of driving. I'm just saying that this gives me hope that somebody will come along in maybe another 5 years time or something and make this be commercially viable for a big plane that can carry, say, maybe like 100 people or something. And then we could, reduce the number of commercial flight. I'm not saying that this would replace cars and you would be flying into work with this. I think there's really, strong safety concerns. I mean, flying is very dangerous, and you really do need to be highly specialized and trained and all that kind of stuff. So that's not what I was implying. Sorry if that was confusing. Traffic regular system for those aircraft. Yeah, that's not what I was implying. Hey, Race Lover, welcome. Happy New Year. No one got you a new mic for Christmas. They don't love you. Well, you know what? I got a first ever super chat from Jutaro yesterday in my live stream. So Race, if you want to hook me up, feel free, please. Let's see, Herbivore. I'm still waiting for my hover car. They promised me in the 70s. I know. Is anybody old enough watching? I mean, I'm sure some of you are like me. When I was a kid, I can't remember exactly how old I would have been, but one of my favorite shows, my brother and I used to watch all the time, was the show Beyond 2000 on the Discovery Channel. And this was back in probably like the maybe early 90s, I think, maybe late 80s or early 90s. And I remember that show so vividly that it seemed so futuristic and so like crazy. And I mean, if you watch some of those episodes, that was the name of the show, Beyond 2000, and you would have just believed that by the year 2000, like we would all be like flying around in like hover cars and like, I don't know, cool stuff like that. Like they had so many cool things. And I remember they had a thing where a guy was like piloting his boat with just like mental stuff. Like he had a little electrode thing tied to his head like a headband, and he could literally think left or right, and the sensor was able to pick up like electrode signals and whatever, electric signals like in his brain, and could actually steer the rudder of the ship and stuff like that. And this was like way back in like the 90s. So it's just kind of crazy, like some of the stuff they had already then working as prototypes, but then some of the stuff they claimed would be kind of available just never really happened. So anyway, Jutaro says I should do the 7-day race lever challenge. What is the 7-day race lever challenge? Do I dare ask? I don't know. Leon, I think I heard of a relatively big electric plane being tested some time ago too. Well, there was one that was solar powered. I remember that. And I think that was the first one to circumnavigate the globe, or maybe that was the plan. I vaguely remember that. I maybe even talked about it, but I don't remember it now. But I think there was a plane that it was solar powered, and they were set to go around the Earth with it. So I'm sure it's only a matter of time. I think really like there are big changes coming, and I think that's positive. Oh, cool, Jen. In Australia, there was a show Towards 2000. I'm sure it was probably the same thing. They just like rebranded it, like in the US it was Beyond 2000, and there it was Towards 2000. But didn't it seem like so futuristic, right? Like for me, it was just this thing. I remember vividly as a kid that it was just like the coolest thing ever. Like I just remember being fascinated by the stuff on that show. Happy race lever uary. That's awesome. All right, last one, and then I'm really gonna get going. This one is, again, good news. It came out kind of late last year, I think. I don't remember. Oh, it was summer, actually. Summer of last year. It was a 150-year-old French patisserie going vegan. So it says the legendary patisserie, known for its traditional French macarons, is transforming its Beverly Hills location to be fully vegan this summer with the help of plant-based chef Matthew Kenny. And, I just chose to leave this as kind of the last thing I want to talk about, that things are changing, things are getting better. We see so many more products now, so many more options. I talked about this in the video I did just after the year-end holidays. It's really becoming to the point now that people do have the option of just choosing what they want. And, like you can just go to the store and you can get dairy milk, which comes from, the exploited body of mothers and babies, or you can get whatever kind of plant milk you want. And I'm not talking about some specialty store or like, something where you have to like drive 5 times farther to get. You can just go to the corner store. I can like walk 5 minutes, and I live in a small place outside of Budapest. Like there's, a couple thousand people that live here. There's a small little convenience store, and I can get plant-based milk. I can probably get 4 or 5 different plant-based milks just by walking down the street 5 minutes. And I know there's food deserts, and I know people have legitimate complaints about this not being available everywhere yet. But you just see it happening more and more places. And it really will get to that point that you can just go to the store, choose one and choose the other. And it's getting to the point that more and more people are making that right choice and choosing compassion and not choosing the one that results in the suffering and death of another sentient being. So I just think that's awesome. And that's pretty much where I wanted to end it. Let me switch back to the webcam and go to the chat here. Herbivore. Bear in mind that the carnivores think we're still in the Stone Age. Yeah, they definitely do. And they want to go back further into the Stone Age. Paleo and carnivore and everything. Race Lover. Pal can't handle the 7-day Race Lover challenge. Stop trying to kill Pal. Now I'm really curious what it is. Leon, I think a 4-seater, but also just a range of 160 kilometers. Oh, okay, so for that plane. But I think I saw something it was solar powered, so it was a different technology than this. It wasn't like a battery-based one. Generally, yeah, after they changed to Beyond 2000. Okay, cool. So it was probably the same thing, I imagine. Jutaro, Pal is level 10 vegan, he'll survive. Nice, cool, thanks for the faith, that's nice. Jen, in Amsterdam recently, an all-vegan cheese shop opened. Nice. Cool, hopefully, it just keeps spreading. I mean, I just see more and more posts on Twitter and Facebook and all these kinds of things. I see lots of stuff happening here in Hungary, and, when I moved here, it was 2010. I moved here in 2010. I mean, I obviously wasn't even vegan then, so I wasn't really looking for it per se, but I can tell you, like, even just finding vegetarian options on menus, like in just a general kind of like restaurant, like you just didn't really see that much, and like a Hungarian's kind of like thinking of like vegetarian was like a fish dish, like, I mean, you just didn't see vegan options anywhere like advertised, and now it's just to the point that like you can just go into so many different restaurants that have nothing to do with veganism, and there's usually at least something you can get that's vegan, and it's spreading really. I mean, like. Pizza places will have vegan options with vegan cheese and stuff. It's not just like, just get the vegetarian pizza with no cheese, which I've had to do many times in many places. And now it's like a lot of places you go into, they will actually have vegan cheese options. It's really cool. Leon, which reminds me, we finally got our first pre-made vegan pizza in the supermarket now. That's cool. And you know what? We got them in here in Hungary too. You can go into like I don't know if it's the Lidl or the Aldi. I forget which one. I think it's Lidl. And you can just get a vegan pizza, and it's like ready-made, just throw in the oven. I'll be honest, I didn't do a review of it or anything. I think it's pretty bad. Like, I don't think it was very good quality, but I got one anyway, and just tried it out. And just as like a quick meal, and you're out of time or something, you just throw it in the oven. It's still better than a lot of other options. But yeah, like just the fact that it's there, just the fact that they have it, it's already like it's really great, and it was dirt cheap. So I don't know, good option to have as like a backup. Race lever, no vegan below level 69 has survived. Just barely fed above that level. Okay, see, I thought the scale was on 10, so I thought I was 10 out of 10. Leon, nice one. Generally, I'm only 30 kilometers from Amsterdam too. Cool, go check it out. Jutaro, nice. I love the confidence. I'm going to ascend to level 9,000. Oh man, I wonder what the top level is. I don't know. Not if he can't get past the race lever challenge, he won't. Alright guys, it's 10:13 my time. I think I'm going to call it here. I'm going to hopefully go back to a regular schedule of these kind of videos and start giving you guys more news, you know, on a more regular basis. I did get kind of overwhelmed last year, and it's still really crazy. I'm really busy, but I'm going to try to be more regular and kind of like doing these because I think they were kind of fun, and it's a good way to interact with all of you guys, and it's great. So yeah, hopefully you guys had fun. If anybody is new, welcome, and please remember to subscribe and share this with your friends. And then yeah, I'll get back to doing some kind of regular gardening videos and things that I have planned. I have a bunch of stuff kind of cooking along the way. I'm waiting for some things to grow. I'm growing ginger right now. That should be kind of fun to share with you guys. And yeah, it's pretty cool. Alright, so yeah, if nobody has anything else, thanks everybody for watching, and see you guys soon. And yeah, just keep fighting the good fight, and getting people, you know, to see that you know, veganism is really just often a choice of just picking the right thing off the shelf. You know, just move your hand slightly farther and pick the ethical option that doesn't involve killing animals. Like, and this goes for the clothing store and everywhere else too. You know, like, I mean, you can just buy shoes, you can buy vegan pants, you know, jackets, whatever. Like, now it's just getting easier and easier every single day. And read the labels. I mean, it's just not that hard. Okay, cool. Thanks Herbivore. Thanks Jen, Leon, Race, everybody, Jutaro, everybody. Thank you so much. Juice, I don't know if you're still watching. Hope you are. Hope you're good. Keep eating those apples. Okay, Race Lover's going to send me my schedule for my live streams. Okay, cool. I'll do my best. I'm actually trying to set something up on the weekend. I'll probably do one with Logan Blake on Sunday. I'm going to see if that happens. We'll see. But that would probably be on his channel. But anyway, I'm going to talk about gardening. Let's see. You're really enjoying these. Thanks, Jutaro. Appreciate it. Heading home with dogs from AST walk of the day. Oh, last walk of the day. Okay, cool. Good night. Thank you. And nice that you're walking your dogs. It's really cool. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a good one.